大德圣听，为此法会，及一切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐，殊证无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed, Noble, and Perfectly Enlightened One. Namo Sadanto Suchedoye Alahudi Sanyao Sanputoshe. Wu Shang Shen Shen Wei Miao Fa, 百千万劫难遭遇，我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Okay, can we do this together? Let's see if we can do it in unison. Here we go. Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in eon. But now we see, hear it
Reverently, may we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning.
Okay, great. Well, we're getting better at that. This unison and then call and response across the miles. My number one studio light just winked out. So this is called retrograde Mercury time. Try your best. Okay. Good evening, everybody in Berkeley, California, and those of you who are joining around the planet on YouTube at different times. My name is Heng Sure, and we're going to be looking into the sixth ground section of the 10 grounds chapter of the Avatamsaka Flower Garland Sutra. And this is, I'm physically sitting in Gold Coast, Australia, down in Queensland. We just had a major rainstorm come through, and it hits hard when the rain falls here. It may continue, or that might have been it. But in any case, we're cool and damp here, which is nice. I understand that there is potentially snow in Palo Alto tonight. Is that right? I heard. Have you all got snow in Berkeley? No, right? Not. No, cold. Could snow. If it rained, it would snow, right?
It's not that cold.
Weather report?
It hasn't been that cold.
Okay. I saw a picture on the Chronicle of snow in Palo Alto they were hoping. Anyway, we'll see. We have an interesting situation in our text. Let me describe it, the challenge of this section of text that we're lecturing on. And I'm actually happy that I'm doing it, and it's not Jin Chuan Shi, Jin He Shi, Jin Xian, or Jin Fo, because this is authentically a challenge for a sutra lecturer. It's a tough section, and I'm going to, on account of my seniority, I'm going to do something a little extracurricular. Is that the word? I'm going to fake a Hail Mary pass and see if I can't do an end run. What am I talking about? Never mind the football metaphors, right? The football metaphors would be wasted probably. I'm going to revert back to the prose section to explain the verse section. The reason being, all of the markers of difficult translation are present in the verse section of the sixth ground. Let me talk about that. The Buddha in our chapter has been going through, this is called the 10 grounds chapter. He's been going through what a bodhisattva needs to know in order to practice like a bodhisattva, this awakened being who's made vows to bring people out of suffering, to end suffering for living beings. People he knows, he wants their suffering to end, and he's devoted to doing that. Made vows, and then he practices that way. The Buddha takes him step by step in the 10 grounds chapter. And the steps are measured by things called paramitas, perfections. It just means grades, stages of practice. They're methods. The sutra describes them as gateways. So they're doors that you go through. In other words, levels of knowledge that you gain, but it's knowledge for use. It's not just intellectual information. It's practical methods for helping people end their suffering. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are still on the ground. There's still things that any one of us sitting in the audience at Berkeley, listening on YouTube later, could conceivably experience in your lifetime. Generosity, patience, virtue, strength and things you can do, but you're still not allowed to practice. Once you get your MD or whatever medical degree you have, suddenly all that knowledge can be used. That's what's going on. The sixth step of the book. Right? How are you doing?
Heng Sure, sorry to interrupt. We just lost the last maybe 2 or 3 minutes because we had a power glitch. The lights
A hiccup.
dim, and so yeah, so you froze on the screen for like the last 2 minutes.
But see, you didn't miss anything. I was just demonstrating. I was
we heard the vigor and strength, and then it stopped.
I was demonstrating samadhi, you see? That's
Yeah, you were really still. You were really still.
Did you all understand? I hope you all got it. It's sadly, I transmitted the secret during that time, and if you all missed it, you're going to have to send in a card and a letter with a return address and $500 taped to the card, and we will send you for your very... No, I'm kidding about that. Okay, right. So what I said was, I was giving an extended analogy what that sixth step is like. I went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I froze at 2. Maybe this is the universe saying, you can preach it, but you sure can't do it, right? You got to practice what you preach, son. Something like that. So maybe I should be appropriately repentant about that. Okay. So what I said was, if you wanted to understand how different 6 is, what happens at step 6, this transformation that happens, it's like a doctor, maybe, who's in training. And the doctor goes through all the training, getting all the knowledge, passing all the tests, qualifying, certifying, getting lab experience, still can't practice medicine. Once the doctor gets his or her degree, MD, DDS, whatever it is, suddenly there's a new octave of function. All the other stuff was there and is necessary, but Once that degree is in place, you're a doctor. Okay? Once that sixth step, the prajna wisdom step for the bodhisattva, has been reached, this bodhisattva functions in a different way. His consciousness still works just like before, better than ever, but his or her wisdom is now in place, and things are very different. He sees things differently, right? Wisdom is starting to function. 2 levels of truth are now available to this bodhisattva. Now, that's great. That sounds good, and Master Hua would say, work hard and it's yours. It's not just for somebody long ago and far away. It's yours if you do the work. The problem is we're trying to translate it. We're trying to use knowledge and even samadhi that stops because we haven't got to that prajna level. And it's a challenge. So that's one level of challenge. Level 2 challenge, what the Buddha is describing is a series of 12 links of conditioned arising. And the 12 links of conditioned arising are 12, anything 12 is hard, right? 12, hard to remember 12. So that's a challenge to explain. And in the prose section, that's what our 6th ground is all about. What the Buddha is seeing going on, that he's telling us, just the way when you lift the hood on a car, you say, look, there's an engine, the engine is going dunk, 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 whir, 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 and the car goes forward. If you don't lift the engine, it's still happening, but you just don't know it. The Buddha says these 12 links are working inside us like an engine, creating the universe and your life in it. And you don't have to know about it, but if you look, here's what's going on, I want to show you, says the Buddha, right? So that's what's going on. That's hard. That's hard to explain, especially because it's not from my experience or your experience yet. Maybe it is, but not in mine. Okay, so that's double level of difficult. Level 3 difficult, we're in the verses part. And the verses part crams that information into very terse phrases. So as I was looking at our text today, I was shaking my head because I don't think we're going to be able to massage the text to the place where we go, oh, that's crystal clear and still in verse form. It's simply going to take more words to make sense of it, okay? So that's my long disclaimer about what I plan to do with today's text. What I did was I went back to the prose that preceded it in the early part of the 6 grounds and just kind of bathed in the clarity and incredible insight there, and thought, gee whiz, I'm going to point to the verses and then point back to what the verses are reminding us about, because the verses repeat what was in the prose. Okay? There you go. That's my not excuse, no. That's my explanation for our strategy today. Okay? Can we put our palms together, please, and join me in invoking the Avatamsaka Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. This is the text right here. Here we go. Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Ma Yen Jing Ma Yen Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Ma Yen Jing Ma Yen Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Ma Yen Jing Ma Yen Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Ma Yen Jing Ma Yen Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Ma Yen Jing Ma Yen Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Ma Yen Jing 华严海会佛菩萨，南无大方广佛华严经，华严海会佛菩萨。There we go. That's our Chinese invocation. How neat. Indeed, we are here, 6th ground coming up. There's that part. And here is our section, page 17. This is where we start today. So let's keep our standard procedure, how we move forward through our text, which is to say, we first recite it and put the text in front of us and look at the original, then recite Chinese, the English, the rough translation. This is a rough early draft, and then we go into it to see what we can learn about what's going on inside our minds, inside our nature that the Buddha described as the engine of creation. Right here. This is our section right here. Blow it up big. Okay, we're going to start, right there, that line. Okay, everybody have the line? Let's do it this way. Since there's a time lag between Australia and US, I won't wait for you. I'll just go ahead and invite you to recite along with me. I'm going to be using the Chinese characters. If you can use the romanization, the ABCs underneath, please go ahead. Here we go. Ready? 无名所作有二种，远中无了为行因，汝是乃至老中末，从此苦伤无有尽。Right? Here's what the English says. It's this guy right here. Ready? Here we go. Together. There are two kinds of karma which ignorance enacts, not understanding that whereby one is supported and providing activities cause. It continues in that way up to old age and death. From this comes suffering, which does not have an end. Okay? Now, if you read that and said, gee whiz, I don't understand that, well, I'm right with you. I know what you mean. So, we're not satisfied with that, but that's the initial experience of trying to make sense of that. For me, anyway. So what do we do about it? We look at it. Definitely, this can be understood. We just have to put it into language that comes from a combination of our experience and analogies, similes, stories, metaphors, whatever it takes to make sense of what's going on. Because the Buddha definitely explained it with the thought, you guys need to know these things. This is something you can understand. And there's a reward for understanding it, which is suffering comes to an end. Okay? Here's what it says. Here's what the verse just said. There are two kinds of karma that ignorance enacts. Not understanding that, whereby one is supported and providing activities cause. I don't get that. It continues in that way up to old age and death. From this comes suffering, which does not have an end. This is clear. This is clear. This is what happens all the way to step number 12 out of 12. And guess what? It hurts. From this comes suffering which doesn't have an end. Okay? What's he talking about? Here. This is the text that we just read the verses from. Okay? So these verses are repeating the text. Here's the text. I went back and found it and put it on a sheet for you so we can have it right. Irrigate the eld? No, probably field. F-I-E-L-D. Okay. A field. There we go. That is to say. Okay. What is this? This is the Buddha's first description of the 12 links. Okay. We're going into them right now. Okay. Now, this requires you to be a little bit patient because we're going to go through 12 steps. But it's good stuff. And like I said, this is another story of creation. Abrahamic religions, God did it. God the Father, creator of heavens and earth, step by step, was responsible for the creation of it. The Buddha tells another story, different story. And here it is. This is how our lives come into being, and the amount of suffering or lack of suffering that we experience. Cool. Okay. What does he say? He says, karma as a field, consciousness as seeds, ignorance is a covering darkness. Ignorance is like nightfall. Karma and consciousness. Meaning what? Karma is activity. Things we do. Consciousness plants a seed. Consciousness is active, potent, fertile. Ignorance covers us. And, by golly, love brings moisture. Pride and arrogance irrigate the field. Views increase. Name and form emerges. I'm highlighting the links. Name and form grow and create the 5 sense organs. The sense organs pair with their objects, they make contact. Contact happens, feeling results. Love comes from feeling. You feel so good you want to do it again. Love grows, you cling to it because your senses love it. Grasping increases, the more you cling to it, then it comes into being. And existence arises, and a body comes about. There is birth. Once there's birth, there's old age, ultimately death. Okay? Now, that's the 12 links. The Buddha's given them to us here in a agricultural metaphor, like growing crops, like a garden, right? So here we go. Here are our 12 links. First time the Buddha presented them. These are the names of them. Okay, this is part number 1. From here on, he retells the same list, nine more ways, 10 altogether. But here's the key. Why do we care? So what? Is the Buddha like selling books? Does he hope to get a grant to investigate this? Get a fellowship? No, none of that. The Buddha is concerned about suffering, which is misery and pain, with old age, ultimately death. How do I know that? Look, when old age and death happen, we feel intense misery. Because of that misery, there's worry, grief, sorrow, lamentation. A multitude of suffering accumulates. That's the story. And who's he talking about? He's talking about people he cares about. Your little niece, right? The apple of your eye, right? Your beloved grandma, who you would not want the slightest thing hurtful to happen, who you care about, who you don't want to suffer, right? Your spouse, your children, right? You don't want misery to happen in their lives, so you care, right? This arises because of caring. I think that's so, so, so important to explain here. It's not abstract, theoretical, divorced from human experience. And too often, Buddhism is presented that way. Like, here's Buddhism. Here is a doctrine. It's chapter 3 in the textbook. Oh, 12 links. Everybody goes, yawn. 12, that's too many. Can I have 10 links or maybe 6? No, 12, says the Buddha. And he explained this because he wanted misery to stop. Good for him. What a neat thing to do. He took on as his challenge, I'm going to make suffering stop. I'm going to understand it and see if I can't make the hurt go away. What else you got going for yourself this lifetime? What a good thing to do, right? So yeah, this is the Buddha's project, because he cared enough to go through 6 years in the deep dark forest. So now, this is the section. Let's see, what do we have? We had this. Back on our verse. Here's our verses. Okay, we need to make this bigger. It says, hey, there are 2 kinds of karma that ignorance enacts. Really? Yes. The Buddha's next description says, let's take a look at that linking process. These are called 12 links because they really pull. They tug. Last week I used these beads. They tug like this, right? You pull on this one and the other ones follow, just like that. That's how 12 links work. And they function in 2 ways, he says. First is ignorance. That's the first condition. And ignorance, from the Buddhist point of view, is called avidya, Sanskrit. Wu Ming, Chinese, no light. Not enough light to see what's really going on. Don't believe it? Why are you in a bad mood? I don't know. Right, says the Buddha. Case in point, right? Why do you love black coffee? Don't know. I just like it. Right, says the Buddha. That don't know is our kind of our default state. That's how we are at rest. And with Ming, when you get light, you see, oh, it's not what I thought. 2 kinds of karma. How does ignorance function? Functions in 2 ways. One is it covers over, so we can't see. And 2, it pulls the second link, which is to say what? In the darkness, we do stuff, heedless of consequences. So he, and then it goes on and says, it continues this way up to old age, right? So in other words, ignorance to activities is that way, but activities to consciousness is that way, consciousness to name and form is that way. So 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. All the links are the same. And the way they are the same is they have 2 functions, and the second of those 2 functions is it pulls the next one along. They're linked. So these don't operate in a vacuum. They're all connected. My guess is, and I would love to have some science whiz, I don't know if we have any experimental physicists among us, I'll bet there is a periodic table that would show this. My guess, and I have no basis to say this at all, I have no evidence at all, and I'm not qualified, but many times what the Buddha is describing is a model that science later verifies. I'll bet there is an actual molecular linking here, that if somebody looked at this in English, or if they spoke Chinese and had our perspective on it, they would be able to go, oh, sure, oh, that's the Higgs boson, reaction. Oh, that's on my textbook. Yeah. You know. Okay, Jin Chuan Shi, Mr. Physicist, you're going to go do some research online. See if you can't find like 12 elements that link in a bond, and ignorance is the cause. Why not?
Usually tries to hide and just say, we just deal with the material world. Anything that we can't measure, we don't really pay attention to. Or we can't look at.
Yeah, but the point is, I'm totally out on a limb and I can't document it. But I think the Buddha is describing material world. It's just that it's so quick and it's so subtle. And is it that right? No, maybe I need to pull that statement back. It's not that he's describing the material world. He's describing the catalyst that manifests in the material world. These are the sparks that set off the explosion, called the disaster of my life. Right? But somehow, look, he's saying, okay, wait. Here we go. I've got the quote. Here we go. Right there. Hold on. Yeah, here, right here. Disciples of the Buddha, there are two kinds of karma created by ignorance. The first kind confuses living beings about what is conditioned, and the second one provides the cause for the arising of activities. In other words, first kind of karma means it's dark. Number two, it links. Okay? Then it goes on. Activities has two. The first is it brings about, it's a seed, and then two is it pulls consciousness forward. Right? So our first verse today says there's two kinds of karma. The second one of those two in 12 successive cases is always, and it pulls the next one. Okay, so when I read that, I thought, my goodness, it just sounds to me that the Buddha is probably watching a chemical reaction, something like that. That this is actually happening, you know. And the Buddha is saying, duh, you think I'm theoretical? I'm not a philosopher. It's happening right now. And all you have to do is get rid of the wombing and you will see it. You will verify. Anyway, something like that. But any scientists who want to take up the challenge will help you apply for the grant. Probably His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, which in China he's known as Nei Goren. You don't mention his name. You say Nei Goren, right? Probably his, what's the name of his science conversation that he's been having for all these years at MIT and around? Probably he has access to research monies that we can pay our physicists to test out the 12 links and to see them. Okay. Got it. Now, back to our verse. Plug it in. What we've talked about here. Wonder if I can drop that down. There we go. Okay. Ignorance. I just can't help myself. I've got to improve it here. Ignorance powers two kinds of karma. Active voice. Not understanding what supports you, not understanding what supports you, and linking activity, pulling activities along. Okay, those are the two kinds of karma. It continues in that way through each of the other links all the way to the last one, which is there. Lots of words. That's not poetic in any way. It's not versified. And from this comes suffering. Suffering starts here. Starts here and does not stop. Anglo-Saxon. Suffering starts here and doesn't stop. Okay, so we got that. That's just a statement. Now suddenly our first verse makes more sense, right? Let's move on to our second verse and see what it says, and see if we can, using the prose section, see if we can't make sense of it. First of all, we need to look at the Chinese. Bring that up. I'm running 2 copies of each document here. Okay, here it is right here. Wu Ming Wei Yuan Bu Ke Duan, Bi Yuan Ruo Jin Xi Jie Mie, Yi Chi Ai Qu Fan Nao Zhi, Xing You Shi Ye Yu Jie Ku. Okay, let's look at the Chinese is so good, right? Wu Ming, ignorance, no light, as condition. When ignorance is the condition, you simply can't stop it. Because you can't see, it's dark. Bi Yuan Ruo Jin. However, good news, if you put an end to that condition, all of the suffering is done in, stops. Xi Jie Mie, all the other suffering stops. So pay attention to Wu Ming, to ignorance, not understanding. Get some light in there. Yu Chi Ai Qu Fan Nao Zhi. Stupidity, ignorance, love, grasping, excuse me, are the branches of misery. Fan Nao Zhi. Ignorance, love, and grasping are the branches of affliction. Xing You, 2 more. So here's Ai Qu. These are 2 of the 12. Here's 2 of the 12. Xing You are karma. The other is all suffering. These, when you read these verses, it really lends some support for the notion that the verses came first before the prose. When I read these in Chinese, they echo. They're deep, and it's like, right, these have the power of something that should be carved on a rock and left forever, because it's so pithy and right on. The English, on the other hand, hasn't reached that level yet. So that's a challenge, because Chinese is terse to begin with, and the Chinese have a deep love of verse form, one, right, this kind of way of dealing with language. And the Dharma that they're explaining has got deep power. Okay. If ignorance is the situation, if you're covered with ignorance, your suffering's going to happen. Sorry. But put an end to ignorance, your suffering is over. Where does trouble come from? Comes from love and grasping. Ai Qu. Ignorantly falling in love and grasping, behavior, activities, actions, and existence are where karmic seeds are planted. Everything, all the suffering follows from these. So in other words, of the 12 links, these 2, activities and existence, are the places that are turning points in the 12. All 12 are important. Those turning points are where karma is planted down. Suffering will follow from those. Woo, neat. Okay, where's the English? English is here. With ignorance as the conditions, suffering cannot will not stop. As long as ignorance is the state of your mind, suffering will never stop. Okay? That's English, right? Long as ignorance covers your mind, let's really understand it. That's not word for word what the Chinese says. As long as ignorance covers my mind, stop pointing. As long as ignorance covers my mind, suffering will never stop. Why? The condition is there to make big mistakes. You don't see what you're doing. You don't know. You're operating on what? Instinct. You're operating on desire, passion, lust, jealousy, right? Those things push you forward, heedless of consequences. You don't realize until it's too late what happened. And then suffering. Well, I didn't know at the time. I didn't realize. But once that ignorance ends, suffering becomes extinguished. What language is that? Suffering stops. Then, once ignorance ends, suffering is over. Okay? The limbs of affliction are stupidity. No, I don't think stupidity is not a link. It's ignorant love. Deluded love and grasping. That yuchi is a modifier, I believe. I think it's a pair. I think it's ai, qu, and xing, you. Activities in existence are karma, while the limbs of activities, of actions, and existence create karma, and all the rest is suffering. Okay? The Buddha is, this is an IKEA diagram. You've opened the cardboard box, you pulled out the white wooden pieces that are all over the floor with the silver bolts, and you've got a hex wrench, and you fold the IKEA instructions. And it says, insert flange B in slot C. The Buddha is doing the same thing here. He's saying, look at these two, this is how they function, this is how they link. This is instructions. It's data, right? It's information. No, it's not designed as a spiritual classic. No, it's the Buddha saying, you want to see where the pain comes from? It's here. You want to make it stop? It's here too. Okay? So I've been pounding on that. I wanted to show you a line from the Sixth Ground Prose that when I saw it today, it was just like, this makes it all worthwhile. The kind of work that we have to do. It's a Saturday night in Berkeley. It's a Sunday afternoon in Gold Coast. And we're stretching, This text requires us to stretch. Where's the payoff? What's the point? Take a look. Suffering comes from causes and conditions. Yet, there's nothing there that accumulates it. The process moves on towards its end, but there is also nothing that ends. In this way, the Bodhisattva contemplates the characteristics of conditioned arising. When our Bodhisattva got to step 5, he became an ace meditator. She became a meditation master. Sit down, your mind enters samadhi. Standing in line, your mind can enter samadhi. In that samadhi state, what rises is this transformation. What used to be consciousness based on binary consciousness, yes, no, true, false, right, wrong, usually it's one or the other, arose another integration of that, which is called wisdom. It works like a mirror. It reflects perfectly, and it shows everything that's there, without flaw, without distortion, without exclusion. Consciousness is, when it's love and hate, me and mine, true and false, there's a lot of stuff that we block out. There's stuff that we reject. There's stuff that we're blind to. There are selected biases, right? Because it's working so hard. Oh, I identify this. No, I don't like that, but that's my favorite. Consciousness transformed into wisdom is effortless reflection. Everything fits. There's no preference, there's no choice, there's no love and hate. The self that is in there determining friend and foe, friend and enemy, right and wrong, is now not in charge. That center has been removed. The linchpin of ego has been pulled out, and the senses are operating in a whole new way. What is the core principle and vows? It's now replaced the individual ethical codes that are constantly shifting. Eternal Dharma principle and wisdom is the new center. Okay, with that in mind, the Buddha says, okay, use that wisdom along with your consciousness, which is still there for daily use. Take a look at the situation. Guess what? 12 links are ticking by, but you know what? There's nobody in there at the center. That's the secret to this. Not the secret, that's the punchline to this joke. Which is what? All this stuff's going on, ignorance, all the way to old age, suffering, death, and misery, but there's nobody there to feel it. Never has been. We just think there is, and until our debts are repaid, that structure is there to go through reincarnation, phase after phase. The Bodhisattva sees that the process moves on, but there's nothing that ends it. It's just a function. The 12 links are absolutely there, but what's it like? It's kind of like weather. I mean, we just had a rainstorm. It was so noisy here, I'm glad it stopped before the broadcast because you wouldn't have been able to hear me. Who made it rain? The dragons? The weatherman? I don't know. Who made it stop? Conditions? It was really raining, but you know what? It was not a sentient thing there, but it was sure raining. Water was falling through the sky, right? The birds were miserable. I ran to close the windows, but there's nobody there. Buddha is saying 12 links, this whole experience of coming into life as a living being, going through what we do, is like a stage play. It's like a show on the tube. Isn't that something? Like, really? Oh yeah, so neat. And what's our confirmation of that? We're talking about wisdom. In the Vajra Prajna Paramita Sutra, the Diamond Sutra, Buddha says all conditioned things, there's a way to look at them if you want to see it the way I see it, he says. They're like dream, like an illusion, like a bubble, like a reflection, like a dewdrop, like a lightning flash. They're over. Contemplate them this way. Okay, that's essentially the power moment of this teaching, which is we're looking through the Buddha's eyes at step 6. The sixth step is the Buddha's vision, and the sutra lets us look through the Buddha's eyes. Now, we have been all along, but here it's especially intense because my eyes don't see this. It's too deep. So the sutra shares it with us, and our job is to say, hey, this was meant to be understood, so let's try our best to understand it. We can, and that's what I like to do on a Saturday night. I can't imagine anything better on a Saturday night. So, in that way, here's another one. Here's another statement of the same process. The Buddha says, actually it's Vajra Treasury Bodhisattva says, in that way, a tree of suffering grows and increases, but in this process, there's no self, or anything that belongs to a self. There's no doer of deeds, neither is there a receiver of the deeds done. Same idea. The process is going on, the house is burning down, people are screaming, but in the end, from my point of view, there's nobody really there. And yet the suffering is intense. Isn't that amazing? So, how about that? Any comments? Any what in the world? Anybody want to reflect on that? Am I right? I mean, this strikes me as, this is news, but certainly won't sell newspapers. Whose hand is up? Is that YC?
Master, I have a question about the translation of the second verse.
Okay. Wait. I want to bring up this one right here. Yes. Okay.
I think the second verse is start over talking about the 12 links, so it's not continue from the first verse you talked this evening. So
Okay.
could you make your text? I need text larger.
Have you got
yeah.
it? Is that what you're looking for?
So
Is
yes.
that big enough?
Let me see. So I'm thinking that because you are continuing the translation from the first verse, as long as ignorance covers my mind, suffering will never stop. But when I read the Chinese, I think it's still talking about the 12 links. So I would like to say it's as long as ignorance covers my mind, the rest of the links will never stop. But once that ignorance ends, the rest of the links is over.
Okay, let's look. Wait. You might be right. Let's see here. I've got the other one. Okay. 无名为缘，不可断. So the question is, what is 不可?
不可 is the rest
Right.
of the link, 就是下面的11个 links.
Okay. So 不可断 means the links cannot be broken. 断 here would mean actually to cut the links. And let's take a look here. 闭缘若尽悉见灭. The links.
闭缘若尽 is that the 无明 is 断掉，那个缘无明那个缘就断掉了。悉接近，the rest of the links will stop.
Okay. Do people see what YC is suggesting here?
Yeah.
Hold on.
If we also look at the sutra text from before, it confirms what YC says.
Okay. I'm trying to get this. Okay. Hold on. Oops. Okay, let's take a look here. So that's very helpful. And that's the kind of feedback that actually is most necessary. Here we go. So,
The verse is talking about.
okay, hold on 1 second. Let's go step by step here. Okay, Wu Ming Wei Yuan. As long as ignorance is the condition of my mind or covers my mind, then book literally cannot be cut. The rest of the links will never cease pulling along. Okay? So I interpreted that to mean suffering because this is the Buddha's project. But Jin Chuan, what have you found?
Could you go to page 17 of the sutra text on your book? I think you'll get a very specific explanation.
Page 17
in the not the PDF, but 17 in that number on the top of the page. Yeah, there you go, right there. If you just scroll down a little bit. So the verses really summarize the sutra text very section by section. So the next section right below, disciples of the Buddha when ignorance conditions activities. That's what we're talking about in this section.
Okay. Right. This is the two kinds of karma here. Okay. All right. I accept that. I think that's exactly right. Now let's see. What does it say? Ignorance conducted. Yeah. Okay. Good. That's good. Then, once that ignorance ends, the other links all stop. Okay? All right, you said line 3, YC, what was it?
Continue see the text of the page 17. So it's talking about 3 things: ignorance, love, and grasping. So it's not diluted love.
Ignorance stops, then up to and including cessation of birth, including old age. Okay, they eradicate activities up to see. Old age just ceases. Ignorance, love, and grasping. There it is right there. Okay, good, thank you. When ignorance, love, and grasping are not stopped, that's the path towards affliction. Great. It is ignorance, in fact. All right? That's why you guys get paid the big bucks, right? So we'll go back and look at the Chinese here. Okay, right here. There it is. Okay, here we go, right there. All right, and the Chinese says, cool, okay. Ignorance, love, grasping are the limbs of affliction. So it's not an adjective, it's a noun. Okay, great. More. Hayona.
Next paragraph, it talks about the page 19. It explains the next section as well. Mm-hmm. Actually, this part is very instructive for cultivation about how the limbs of affliction work, because those are actually where we apply our energy and our cultivation in those 3 places. That's the 3 places we can actually work on in the 12 links.
So explain that. What do you mean? First of all, Find the text. Wait.
So page
It's
17,
right there.
and then bottom page 17 goes to top of page 19. So this actually also, the Theravada break up the 12 conditioned links in this way as well. But basically, 3 of them, ignorance, love, and grasping, are seen as the path towards affliction. And then you have activities and
Right.
existence are the place where there's creation of karma. And then all the rest are resultant. You can say things that result from those activities, which is suffering.
Let's see here. I'm still not finding it in page
You have
19.
it right there, top. When
Here
activities
we
and
go.
existence.
Activities and yeah, there it is. Okay, yep. So our verses are really reliably tracking the progression of the prose. The challenge is to, and I'm really glad you all suggested last week that we go back to the prose, because here it is, right? And it's still, I mean, this is still stiff English. It's still like passive voice and things like that, but it's clear and it's not limited by the verse form. So there's a challenge. We have these 3 layers of challenges. Let's take a look here. The limbs of affliction are ignorance, love, and grasping, while the limbs of actions and existence create karma, and all the rest is suffering or are suffering. All the rest is suffering. Let's apply let's work together and apply our new methodology to number 3. All right? Let's see what we get. Because we need to actually move through these verses to get to the 7th ground coming up. So I want us to engage these and understand it the way the Buddha was presenting it, as a text for understanding, right? Understanding this notion of creation. All right, the Chinese is here. Here's our verse. Let's make it big. And bring it over. Okay, here it is. 吃智六处是行苦，处受增长是苦苦，所欲有之是坏苦，若见无我三苦灭。Right? We're going to do our similar process here. When I'm physically in the Buddha Hall at BBM, I don't have access to the text function that I have when I'm online. That's I guess a plus. That's one advantage. You can show with text how you're actually manipulating the language. Okay, here we go. So, 吃智六处是辛苦. Stupidity, up to the 6 locations, is the suffering of process, one kind of suffering. What is the 六处? That's links number 无明缘行, 行缘识, 识缘名四, 名四缘六入. That's links 1 to 6. Right? 无明缘行, 行缘识, 识缘处. Yeah. This is the first 6 links. That's one kind of suffering called 辛苦, the suffering of process. 处受增长是苦苦. The next two, 处 and 受, contact and feeling, is suffering within suffering, another kind of suffering. 所以有之是坏苦. All the other branches are the suffering of decay, going bad. And if you see that there is no self whatsoever in the first place, all this suffering is over. All right? So what comes out of this, to my mind, is why the Buddha bothers to do this. What was the Buddha's project? Every time when we identify this place, the rest of the entire institution of Buddhism falls into place. The church, right? And maybe if you're a meditator, this doesn't make any sense, because Buddhism to you is going, taking the time in the morning, crossing your legs and meditating. That's Buddhism. And I would maintain that in many ways, that's closer to the actual experience of the Buddha than a lot of the practices that built up around it. Right? In Buddhist Asia, I remember traveling through Taiwan with Master Hua and having a monk who was hosting us. We were visiting a new monastery. He was so proud, and he was grandly showing off his brand new temple. And he had, in order to get his roofs to reflect with a special blue-green color, he had made thousands of celadon teacups, which were then ritually broken and made into tiles. He was so proud of his broken teacup tiles. And I remember, Shifu, Master Hua rarely broke his face with disciples. He was always in the mode of teacher. I remember he looked at me like this out of the corner of his eye to see if I was paying attention. And he was registering his, it's like, he looked like that. And I was like, you what? You had thousands of aquamarine teacups made so you could smash them and use them as roof tiles, right? Amitofo. That's excessive, right? That's abuse of kind-hearted people's donations. My God, I have a tin roof that kept the rain off my head. Thank you, enough. My goodness. So, the Buddha's experience was motivated by wanting to end suffering. Right on. Here he's talking about it. He says the 12 links operate here. Stupidity up to the 6 locations. Is that English? Let's see here. Right. The link, let's see here. The link of stupidity, which I think here, my guess is that's Wuming. I think that's a synonym for Wuming, right? The link of ignorance. Now, it's not Wuming, it's not avidya, but I think it's that first link. The first link of the first of the 12 links, which is ignorance, chi, all the way to link number 6, which is the 6 locations, the 6 places. Hi. Number five, which is, okay, which is all the way to link number 5, which is the 6 places, comma, comprise, make up, comprise, create the suffering of process. And you kind of want to put air quotes around, put quotes around it so you can identify it. It's the first of 3 kinds of suffering. Okay? So, chi, ignorance, up to number 6. Number 5, which is liu chu, is creates, comprise, xingku. Okay? There we go. Chu shou, zhengzhang, the increase of contact and feeling. When contact and feeling grow, the experience of contact and feeling growing, contact and feelings, expansion, growth. When that thing happens, you know, you smell bacon and you start to salivate. Or, what is it, dark chocolate, right? I know some people who actually, like, chocolate is a drug. You know, when they see chocolate, they just start to want it, you know. When experience of contact, feeling, expansion, growth, this comprises the suffering of suffering. And we want to put another set of the suffering within suffering. We need a better name for that. Cool. Intense suffering. Jinchuan, do you have access to our glossary by any chance? We've named cool, right?
I don't remember us doing cuckoo, but I can look up in our glossary. I think I can find it. It'll be slow though.
Yeah, see if you got it. Okay, this is the second kind. Okay, then all the others, all the remaining links comprise the suffering of decay. Okay, now the punchline again, and this is the big payoff. This is what he wanted people to see. 若见无我三苦灭. If you understand that in the center of this whole experience, there's no fundamental me or you, there's no us, there's no permanent self in there, then all these 3 sufferings have no place to land. They have no place to stick. And that experience, called suffering, is optional. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional, right? That famous idiom. Okay, let's take a look at this. Where's our notes page? Okay. 3 kinds of suffering. Buddha Dharma, for better or for worse, gets this reputation of being, all suffering all the time. And as a result, Buddhists can be seen as pessimistic, negative, depressed. That's not my experience. The practicing Buddhists whom I've met in my life tend to be pretty lighthearted. People who actually live the Dharma tend to be easygoing. They're kind of take it as it comes. things as they are, instead of this is suffering to be avoided, this is joy to be grasped. Not. It's like equal measure, but take it as it comes. Skillful planting of blessings creates happiness, which then you give away. That's kind of the attitude of the Buddhist side meant. They're too busy doing beneficial things to worry about how miserable they are. Okay. Where did this reputation come from? Why do people stereotype Buddhism as it's all suffering all the time? Well, part of it has to do with the Buddha's description of the nature of conditioned things is what? They go on. Usually it's this way. Things continue, things go bad, and sometimes it's just miserable. But not all the time. Okay? Shifu would talk about this one. Did you find anything, Jinchuan?
It's very slow. I'm slowly getting the document.
Okay. Suffering. If you find something,
suffering
pipe
of
up.
process.
Otherwise, don't worry about it. Suffering within suffering. Intense misery. The Chinese repeats it. The first is a modifier, so it's the misery of miseries. And Master Hua would say, this is the suffering that really poor people experience. And poor is not measured by bank account. If you wanted to illustrate it, it would be refugees in a boat who are pushed back from the shore after finally arriving from a perilous escape across the Mediterranean, across the Bosporus, across the body of water. And the boat touches down and uniformed men come out of the bushes and push your boat back. That's suffering within. And then what? Then you get that tickling in the back of your throat, you know you're going to be sick. And you see your child so sleepy, she can't stay awake, and so she can't hold on, and she's likely to wash over the rubber edge of the boat into the waves. That's kuku, right? That story is being told today. So that's a kind of suffering. You're not only homeless, but you're sick. You're not only a refugee, but you're wanted by the authorities at the same time for something you didn't do. You're misunderstood as well as being in danger, you know. So that's suffering. Intense misery, I think, is probably a better. Suffering of suffering is Chinglish, right? Ku. But it's the Chinese repeat it. That's a kind of suffering. The suffering of huai ku means things go bad. Okay, so beautiful new car, somebody is jealous, walks beside it with a key between their fingers and keys your car. So now you have a long scratch in the beautiful finish of your brand new car. And it's not the same now. Okay. You finally get a date with the person you've been eyeing in the class for all these weeks, and you discover that she's a meat eater and stinks like cheese. And so you can't get close. Or, let's say the other way around. She's perfect, and then she says, oh, I like every sign except Aries, and you happen to be an Aries, right? Oh, so it's like, oh, something spoiled the beauty of my fantasy, right? Something comes along, and you win the Powerball lottery, which is supposed to be what in California? It's $1 billion, up to $1 billion. There's a lotto ticket being awarded in the next 48 hours which is 900 million. something like that, and you discover that you're off by a number. So it was great, but you lose it. So that's suffering that ordinary people experience. So this is suffering when things go bad. It was great until it went bad. Okay? Now, this one, the suffering of going on, is rich people, poor people, misery people, right? This is the suffering of the skandhas getting mature and falling off, breaking up. You get old. Things simply process through, and all good things come to an end. So nobody is immune from suffering when time takes its toll. There's a good literary reference. Time takes its toll. Things go on. Things go on. Okay? Suffering when time takes its toll. Stuff just goes on. And ouch. That's an eternal truth. And the Buddha said, right, take a look. I saw this and I left the palace. This was enough to put me over the fence of the palace, over the wall. Things go bad is you lose your dreams. Here you lose your body. You lose your, things just, your favorite teddy bear just gets rubbed into oblivion. Eye by eye, the buttons and the stitches all fall off, Things go bad it's like your dreams, your fantasies suddenly are shown to be nothing but that. Oh, it was miserable when I thought it was delightful. And intense misery is something that happens when your blessings are exhausted, right? And it lands on your soul and it lands on your body at the same time. That's misery. Okay, so the Buddha said there are sanku, these are they. There's also the eightfold sufferings, and then there's limitless suffering. This is limitless forms of suffering. This is how the Buddha gave us suffering. And Shifu would, this is how he described it. And Shifu would simply recite these lists whenever this would come up in the text. And it's comprehensive, but the Buddha didn't insist on it. He would say, yeah, right, this is reality, and so as a result, I'm going to make this my goal to transform. I'm going to change the situation. Watch. And he did. That's our story. Okay. Anybody want to provide a story, a testimony, give some evidence about the misery stuff, the suffering stuff, or just let it be? File it away. Sanku. Can we? Okay.
I say in Chinese. 屋漏偏逢连夜雨. The roof is leaking and but it's raining all night.
Yeah, that's great. I saw Kuku on the highway outside Half Moon Bay. Bowing along in the rain. There was a skunk, and people don't like skunks for obvious reasons. It's funny, in Asia, when I describe skunks, nobody has seen one. Skunks are a North American phenomena somehow. Our version of skunk. They're called what? 臭鼠. What is a skunk? 臭什么东西? 谁知道? Do we have to look it up here? Maybe so. What's a skunk?
臭鼬.
臭鼬, a yo. Okay, let's take a look. For the scholars among us who need this information. Okay, translate. Let's see if it works here. Translate Chinese. Skunk. 臭鼬. There it is, right there, by golly. Thank you. You're quick with that, Jinchuan.
That wasn't me. That was what they said. They didn't have a mic.
Oh, okay. Thank you. You owned up to it. It wasn't. You could have said, yes, I am, very quick. Okay, 臭鼬, stinky yo. What is a yo? It's a 老鼠, but that's the phonetic, is the yo there. Okay, a skunk. Man, oh man. And if you're not in North America and you don't know what we're talking about, let me show you. Here's a skunk. Hello. Here he is. Here's a skunk. Hi there. Looks a little bit like Pauline the possum. And they are so cute when they're little, you know? They're so cute. But let me tell you, you heard it from me, and I want to tell you clearly, if you see a skunk do this, you want to put some distance between yourself and the skunk. Because skunks have a scent that is very hard to bear. When a skunk lets go on you, here's look at this baby. Oh my goodness. There we are. Aww. Right? They're super cute. Baby skunks. And you can, skunks apparently make pretty good pets, but they have to be descented. You have to descent a skunk before you can live with it, because you don't know when they're going to let go. If you've never smelled a skunk scent, you can't imagine what I'm talking about. But if you've ever been the object of a skunk's weapon, you'll never ever forget it. And dogs that chase a skunk, and the skunk lets go on the dog, oh my. They say, I don't know, there might be some miracle product now, but in the past it used to be tomato juice. Anybody have skunk experience? Any? Qinshan, are there skunks in Poland? Do you know? Are there?
He says no.
Do you ever see skunks in Poland? No, they're. What does that say about America, that we're the only country with skunks? Look into that. So anyway, here I am on 3 steps from Bao, and it's raining, and I notice up ahead there's this black furry bundle by the side of the road, and I have to bow past it. And it doesn't move as I'm slowly approaching it, and I realize it's been hit by a car. And the smell, of course, is everywhere. And my choice was to count my bows and bow around it, or to bow, and walk past it and then bow. But I thought, nah, that's being turned by states, right? So I bowed past the skunk, and had to hold my breath, like 30 feet on this side of him, and then all the way to 30 feet on the other side, because skunk smell it's intense. They take that essence, that oil, and put it into perfumes because it's so long-lasting. It's somehow it interacts with human chemistry. Of course, they get the stink out of it, but the tenacity of that smell, that oil they synthesize for perfume. So anyway, you didn't know that Chanel number 5 had X amount of skunk in it, did you? Ha ha. So, bowing past this poor, dead skunk, I thought, man, every creature in the forest and dogs that are smart avoid you. You are universally reviled. And here you are in the rain, hit by a car. And I thought, that defines cool for me. And it's always been in my, every time I hear cool, intense misery, this kind of double suffering, the roof is leaking all night long, right? That's the skunk hit by a car in the rain. And because I was closely encountering it with my nose on the ground next to the dead skunk, I felt kinship with it. I realized how sad it is to get a skunk's body. What do you have to do when you're not a skunk in order to merit the body of a skunk, where you have as part of your makeup this horrible smell? A smell that no other living thing, except maybe other skunks, maybe skunks don't smell themselves or something. I don't know. I guess there's room here for a bad political joke, like Republican Party. No, I don't want to go there. I won't mention that. But somehow that's how you get to be you stink enough. So, well, never mind. We won't do that. But somehow it was this sense of connection with the skunk by watching how sad and realizing that this too is an effect of a cause. Somehow you get linked to becoming a skunk. So there we go. That's my experience of cool. So what did our verse say? It said, the first link, which is ignorance, all the way up to link number 5, which is the 6 places, comprise the suffering of going on. It's ignorance up to 5 is just getting old. Xing just goes on. Can't stop it. Contact and feeling is hitting your body and your soul as well. That's cool. Intense misery. All the other links comprise the suffering of decay, which is when things you're looking for go bad. You love it, and it goes bad. It's not what you thought. So once you realize that the self is just a way of seeing, all 3 kinds of suffering come to an end. So they say that was the Buddha's essential accomplishment, was understanding the truth of no self. Wu, right there. If you can see Wu, all that suffering comes to an end. Okie doke. By golly. We are at 9 o'clock in California and 3 o'clock here in Australia, 1 o'clock in Taiwan, China. I think we will stop here and pick up next week and make our way through so that we have some hope of finishing our 6 grounds before long and move on to the 7th. The 7th ground is a turning point in the Bodhisattva's progress. It's a major milestone along the path. And the things that arise in the process of the 7th ground are unforgettable. It's very, very approachable. The 7th ground is, I think we'll find that it's not too far out. The way these 12 links, among the 10 grounds, this 12 links chapter is especially complex because it's 12 things. And you've got to keep them in mind. Anything 12 is hard, right? And it's describing a process that somehow, I don't know, maybe some of you in your meditations, you actually experience some connection with these 12 links, the suffering part, the ignorant part. But the Buddha saw the whole process, this pratitya samutpada, it's called. This is the name of it in Sanskrit, in Pali, pratitya samutpada in Pali. And he said, this is really going on right this minute. And it's kind of tantalizing because you think, I can almost, but no, I don't really see it. If I'm truly honest, it's not my experience. The Buddha said, absolutely, this is where suffering comes from. Questions, comments? Anybody want to reflect on the creator deity?
Father, just a comment is the word I was translated as love a few times here. I'm just wondering, but it could also be translated as craving, right? Especially in the context of the 12 links. And perhaps in English that's a less problematic choice of word.
Craving? Yeah. Let's take a look here. Just what Yunlin's bringing up. Is that, have you, in your studies at Dharmaram Buddhist University, is that one of the favorite ways to translate
I know that in one of the dictionaries that we use is translated as craving. And Vincent Dictionary and elsewhere too, I think. Yeah.
It is. It's one of them. Yeah. This is a headache to translate in English. It's here. It's I. Here we go. Fourth tone, I. It's almost as if it were this, right? The pronoun I. It's not. And it's the word in modern Mandarin for love. It can also be the word for my spouse, what airen. My lover doesn't mean lover, it means my wife or my husband in modern Mandarin. So love, and the opposite of hate, et cetera, et cetera. The problem in translating in English is that love stands in for a multitude of experiences, including Jesus's love, the agape that he felt, selfless love for all beings. It also stands in for romantic, erotic love, right? I love you to death, till death do us part. And it also stands in for philios, the love between mother and daughter, father and son. So 4 letters has to stand in for all those experiences that we have. That's tough, right? What are you talking about? Well, I'm talking about the other kind. Well, but it's the same word. And so Buddhists have a hard time with that love that means, you and me, baby, forever and forever, until death do us part, because that's obviously a kind of attachment which will bring about suffering. And yet to say we don't do love in Buddhism, but we do compassion, what's the difference? So it's, Yuanlin's point was craving as a substitute for love. Probably better, simply because you avoid all that weight the word has to carry in English. Right? Jinchuan, what else do we have for I? What are options?
I think in this case, what Yuanlin's saying is actually very important, especially as Buddhism comes to the West, because I think in the word I, in Buddhism, it's actually referring to this kind of craving that is defined as this craving for sensual pleasure, craving for existence, and craving for non-existence. The word's tanha in Sanskrit. And so the problem with love is exactly what you described. It's very broad. So when we say 断欲, 断爱, 断欲, 去爱, or people go, oh, I have to cut off my humanity. But if you point it out, it's actually, no, you're getting rid of your craving that's leading you to suffering. Then there's more space. But you immediately use the word love, some people just walk out the door. Because for them, love is like the highest good. That's like what you're trying to cultivate. And that's true. To a certain extent, it's actually true because there's certain qualities of love that are positive, but the Buddhists actually point out to certain types of craving or attachment that are very harmful, that he's specifying.
Cool. So, Yuanlin has us, was suggesting, let's see, is this the, we are looking at the other one today. Here we go. Let's plug that in. I think we have learned something here. Yes, ignorance, love, and grasping. Okay, suppose we plugged in craving here instead of love. There we go. Okay. Right? Works, right? And we had it here. This has been a BTTS standard to do, every time we see the word I, we do love. And here's another one, right? It is that, what is it, link number, what is that? Link number 6 or 7, which has created a lot of trouble, actually. And in Christianity, you know, love is, God's love is the reason to put up with all the rest, is because God's love is such a saving grace. And when the Buddhists come along and say, we cut off love, you know, it's like, I don't think I want to be a Buddhist, people say. So you guys suffer so much. So, good, all right. That's very helpful. Give me some of your announcements. What's going on? Do you have a activity tomorrow? Is that right?
I don't believe we have anything tomorrow, but we just finished a day of the Chan session here.
You had it today.
Yeah, we had the Chan session, the Chan day today, and we'll have it again next week and the following week. Our classes, some classes have started. For instance, Stephen Tainer's Wednesday class, Thursday East Bay meditation group. I don't know what they call it, East Bay meditation community is still going on Thursday evenings. And then we have still the Saturday night lectures regularly, but the rest of the DRBU classes are on break for the winter until end of January. Otherwise, things are fairly quiet here at the monastery.
For a change, right? It's so counterintuitive. Monastery can tend to be a fairly active place, you know, with the phone ringing and people showing up with all of the problems, all of the cool of being alive. All right. Well, my goodness. Let's transfer the merit, and we'll continue with our verses. And thank you all for your suggestions and feedback in our translation process. This is getting these translations right. It looks to me like it's a generational thing. I think each generation improves upon it. That was certainly the experience in China. There were 300 to 400 years when all of these translations appeared out of Sanskrit. And we learn as we go. But it's not only a generational, it's many hands, many minds, many hearts working on these texts. So, okay. Certainly the world can use our transference of merit. So send it out to a place you know that needs help. It could be a family member. It could be for social ill, disease, earthquakes, wars that create refugees, environmental refugees. We're getting some rain in California finally, so the reservoirs are different. I heard that what was the reservoir that rose 28.5 feet in the last week? Where was that? Tuolumne or somewhere? So the rain that we've had so far, El Nino, has made a difference. Not enough, but it's a good start. So anyway, transfer the merit. So we'll see. Our minds as one with life, share the fruits of peace, with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see, our hands and hearts can find giving unity. May our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward, all their sorrow meet their grief and joy. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, Jin Chuan Sri, you want to lead everybody in bows to the Buddha? And we'll see you all next week.
I'm
Mifo.